So it's 3 p.m. South African time, 9 a.m. Eastern time, New York time. Warm welcome. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. So in this webinar, we're going to talk about the best practices with Pluto LMS integration. And this is part one. We'll have multiple parts and we'll go through that. It's the 11th of August today. So thanks so much again for joining. Just in terms of the agenda for today, so what I'm going to talk about is the integrations that Pluto LMS offers, as well as the video conferencing tools, payment gateways, single sign-on, Zapier, and then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. So just in terms of what integrations Pluto LMS offers, we're going to split this webinar into two. So in this webinar, we're going to discuss video conferencing, payment integrations, single sign-on, and Zapier. And then in 2 weeks' time, we're going to do part two, which will be external repositories, LTI, XAPI, and API. So we will cover that in 2 weeks' time. So jumping into video conferencing. So Pluto LMS offers video conferencing tools as an integration. Some of the native integrations that we do offer, very popular tools such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, Lesson Space, WebEx, and Big Blue Button. So what is video conferencing? Well, it's like the webinar we're having right now. It's just the ability to meet online through a video call. So this is ideal. You can offer your staff or students a live conference or a live session, and we'll show you how that can be set up on Pluto LMS. So some of the benefits to that is just being able to set up calls within your LMS. So it's a native integration. You don't need to be two places at once. So once you've integrated the third-party tool, whether it be Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Lesson Space, etc., you can then trigger it from your LMS and you don't need to go to Zoom to actually set up the meeting, for example. And this just allows for easier access for the students, and we'll show you what that looks like. And quite nice, it's synced with the LMS calendar. So whenever you create a meeting, that meeting will be shown on the LMS calendar as well. So just in this example, we're not going to go into too much detail of what's done within Zoom in order to set up this application. We do have detailed support guides, and it shows you step by step what you need to do to add Pluto LMS to Zoom. So effectively what this is going to do is allow you to get an API key as well as an API secret from Zoom, and you will use these inside of Pluto LMS in order to connect Zoom to Pluto LMS. So that's the first step of the integration. So once you've got your API key and you've got your API secret, you can log into your LMS. You're going to click on Site Admin. You're going to click on Integrations, followed by Zoom. So the process is very similar for all of the other tools that we offer: Big Blue Button, Google Meet, Lesson Space, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, and then of course Zoom. So in this example, I'm just going to show you what it looks like to connect Zoom. So once you click on Zoom, you're going to put in your API key and your API secret. You're going to set your homepage URL. That's also from Zoom. And then once you've saved the settings, you'll see that the connection is working. If not, just check the guides again, go through each step just to ensure that you didn't miss anything on that. Then what's nice, you've connected Zoom now, and you're going to go into your LMS course. And once you click on Edit Course Material, you're going to get editing options. So what's nice about this is now you can add a Zoom call or a Google Meet call or whatever third-party tool you're using, you can add that to your course. And you can decide where that lies in your course. So you might want to have a team catch-up after a certain topic. It's up to you where you want to place that. So you can click on Add Course Content, and then quite conveniently, you click Zoom Meeting and then you click Add. So because you are integrated with Zoom, you don't need to go into Zoom in order to set this up. So you're going to set the meeting name, you're going to give that meeting a description, and as I said, the same works for Google Meets, etc. You're going to set when that meeting will occur as well as the duration. And there's a couple of other optional settings that are available to you. And then once you're done, you can click on Save and Display. So what will the students see, or what will the staff members see inside your organization? They'll see a Zoom icon, or the icon, for example, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams. They'll see that icon within your course. And then when they click on that icon, they'll be able to join the call. Alternatively, they'll also see the call on their LMS calendar. So whenever you set the meeting, they'll see that on the LMS calendar. What's quite nice about Pluto LMS, you can sync the LMS calendar with your personal calendar. The popular calendars out there, such as Outlook, Zoho Calendar, or Google Calendar, you can sync those calendars. And it's a two-way sync as well, which is quite nice. So you can see the meeting pop up on your personal calendar as well. So that was just an example of Zoom, but there's also Lesson Space, Big Blue Button, Microsoft Meet, as Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, as well as Zoom, which I just showcased. Just want to touch on Lesson Space over here. Really, really great product, particularly if you are teaching online. So you can integrate the Lesson Space with Pluto LMS. And what's really convenient about it is it offers your end user the ability to have a webinar type call or an online meeting, but you can also pull up a whiteboard and you can scribble on the whiteboard. You can, use it to scribble, you can erase, etc. And, if you're teaching maths or you're teaching a certain subject, you can add videos. So it becomes a really interactive way to communicate with your end users. While you're having a call, you can pull up these whiteboards. There's also screen sharing that you can do. You can teach languages, etc. You can also use it to write code if you're teaching your students how to code, etc. So there's so many tools that are available inside the lesson space, and we've got the native integration which will allow you to do that. If you also contact us, we are a partner of Lesson Space and we can get you a discount for their services. Great, so that was video conferencing in a nutshell. Really nice way to connect live with your end users. Now we're going to talk about payment gateways. The payment gateways that we do offer are Stripe. So the various gateways are, depending on your location, ideal for certain countries. For example, Stripe is international. PayPal is also international. PayFast is just available to South Africa. Authorized.net is also international. So the likes of Stripe, PayPal, Authorized.net, you can set multiple currencies, for example, dollars or pounds, euros, etc. As well as rands in some of them. But with PayFast, if you're a South African, that's ideal because it's set in rands. If you're an international user, PayFast wouldn't be recommended as it's only in rands, at least today on the 11th of August 2021. They may update that in the future. So payment gateways, it's just a nice way to collect payments securely online. There are various payment methods within these third-party providers, but what this will be able to enable you to do is set up prices for your courses within your LMS. And this automates the enrollment process for your students. So if you're selling a course for $100, you can set the price to that course, and we'll show you what that looks like. And then once the student has paid, whether that be by credit card or whatever payment method is set up, they will then be automatically enrolled. So that's how the integration works. It's quite convenient. So you don't have to run after customers if they're paying by EFT. You can get the payment immediately. They get enrolled into the course. And only once they're paid are they actually allowed to view your course content. So that's quite nice. So I'm just going to show you an example with PayPal. You're going to click on Site Admin, Integrations, followed by PayPal. The way that you connect PayPal is through a business email. So whatever that business email is on your account, you'll put that in there. You can select a couple of options here, whether, once the payment is made, if you want to notify the student or the teacher of the course or the admin, you can set that, and you can also set an expiry, but this is just the default. And you can choose a currency, pounds, euros, dollars, etc. There's also rands, Australian dollars as well, and a few others. So once you set up the integration, you can go into your course, and when you click on enrollment methods, what you're going to do is select your payment gateway. In this case, we're going to select PayPal, and then you can set the price of that course. And this example, it's $249 US, and then you can set the enrollment duration, so how long that end user is enrolled into the course for. If you leave it as 0 or you don't enable this, it will just go on in perpetuity. And then you can also define a start and an end date. So if it's not defined by number of days, you can also say, you can set that in advance. So the user will only get access from a certain date, and then you can optionally disallow access after a certain date. So it gives you a bit of flexibility over there. Then you're going to check, make sure PayPal is added, and then what the student will see is a PayPal little icon to show that the course has a price. When they click on that, they'll see the price of the course, and then when they click that, depending on the gateway that you're using, it'll redirect them securely to that third-party gateway. So the transaction doesn't occur in Pluto LMS, it occurs on the third-party website because they have their own security around that. The user will pay via, the payment methods that you have enabled on the account, and then after that, they'll get automatic access to your course, making it quite convenient. You don't need to run after customers if they're paying by EFT. It's an instant process. Pay by credit card, enrolled into course, and it just streamline the experience for you. That being said, if you are accepting, EFT offline, that will be dealt with your bank, obviously. If you're using a local bank, then the way to get your users onto the system, for example, sometimes, our clients would have 1,000 users that an organization wants to enroll. And then there's a separate payment, let's say done in an offline experience, like an EFT payment. You can then go and bulk enroll that organization into your course using, the methods that we provide for you. So you can collect payments offline, but then it will be a manual upload. So the process that is showcased today is really just centered around the automatic enrollment through these gateways, as you can see here. Great. So moving on to single sign-on. So we have some native integrations with single sign-on. We've got Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and custom OAuth 2. So we've got Microsoft OAuth 2, but we also have Microsoft OpenID Connect, depending on your preferences. So these are available out the box. And then, of course, as mentioned, the custom OAuth. So that's if you have a bespoke application that you want to connect to. You want to connect two different systems. We'll show you what that looks like. So single sign-on, what is SSO? Stands for single sign-on. It's just a one-step single sign-on. So in other words, when a user comes to your system, they click the button, they log in once, and they never have to log in again. A popular example used is some of our clients use Microsoft Azure to manage their employees. So what they will do is have a single sign-on process. So whenever you're assigned into Microsoft on your local PC or in your browser, if you're signed into Microsoft, you'll automatically be signed into Pluto LMS, which just creates a nice seamless experience. Obviously, that's protected through this service. So you can just one click single sign-on access, and it's one profile shared between two systems. So the benefit is just having the connected accounts and then easy, quick access. So the way to set this up, you go to Site Admin, Integrations, and then you're going to click on Single Sign-On. So we have very detailed guides for some of the out-the-box services that we offer for Google. So if you're using Google Workplace and your organization wants single sign-on access via Google Workplace, you can look at our support docs and it shows you exactly how to set up the application within Google. The same applies to Microsoft and Facebook, and then there's the custom OAuth 2, which we'll show you later. In this example, I'm just going to show you Microsoft. So what you're going to do is click on the settings icon. Once you've set up the app within Microsoft, you're going to pull the client ID from Microsoft. You'll pull the client secret from Microsoft, put them in here. There's a couple of optional settings. We're going to skip that. And then once you save changes, you'll see it will show as configured. And then what you want to do is connect a system account. So this is any user within your organization just to test the connection before you go live. So you'll set that up by clicking here. It'll prompt you to sign into your Microsoft account. And then once it's successful, you're going to unhide this so that it can actually be displayed on your login page. So on your LMS platform, if this is set up correctly, you will see the Microsoft login over here. So this can also be applied to Google or Facebook or the custom app that you create. So just in terms of the custom OAuth 2 connection, you can set up a custom connection. So if you click on the gear icon, it's going to ask you to name that, give it a client ID, a client secret, and define some scopes. So each custom integration you do have is going to be very dependent on the third party. So we're not going to go into too much detail here, but effectively what you're going to be doing is connecting endpoints. So we're going to use Microsoft as an example. So within your custom third party tool, you'll connect the endpoints, and then you're also going to connect the field mappings. So the field mappings will just allow you to connect first name to first name, the last name to last name, email to email, etc. So it's just going to connect the two systems. You can create as many as you need here to connect your custom system. That will definitely require a professional developer to connect those two systems for you. But the out-the-box services we offer, you can just follow our support guides and you'll be able to do that without any coding experience. Talking about coding experience, the next integration I'm going to show you is Zapier. So what's really exciting about Zapier is there's a whole range of applications that you can connect via Zapier. There's 3,000 odd. So what we're going to talk about is what is Zapier, what are the triggers, actions, search tools, and then we're going to go through a live example to show you what that looks like. So first of all, what is Zapier? It's really just a middleman to connect applications. So if the app exists on Zapier, it will be able to actually connect to Pluto LMS. So the benefit of this is you're going to have 3,000 plus applications to connect to Pluto LMS on their marketplace. We'll show you some popular examples. What is going to happen, and we'll show you a live example, is you're going to create these automated workflows. So you can decide on the triggers, actions that are within your workflow. And the best part is you don't need a developer to connect any of these applications because Zapier has already formed the integration. So every app, including Pluto, on their marketplace needed to set up the integration with Zapier. And by doing so, it connects every app to any other app on the marketplace, which is really, really exciting because you don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on development fees to, connect all of these applications together. So just some examples within Zapier. So if you Google Pluto LMS Zapier, It should take you to a page like this. And what's quite nice is, you've got 3,000 plus different applications you can connect to Pluto LMS. Google Sheets is popular. We've got a native integration with Lesson Space, but you can also connect it here. There's Gmail, MailChimp. MailChimp's also very popular because if you're sending out campaigns, you might want to sync the users between Pluto LMS and MailChimp to form that integration. Bamboo HR is also quite popular for organizations, for example, doing internal staff training. So you can sync users between the systems. We'll show you some of the integrations, but there are 3,000 plus applications that you can connect via Zapier. So very importantly is just to understand what triggers are within Zapier. So the Zapier definition on their website is a trigger is an event that starts a Zap. So once you've set up a Zap, Zapier will monitor for that trigger event. We'll show you a live example later, but the Pluto LMS Zapier triggers available, and we'll go through each one of these. You can create a new calendar event. So what will happen is, as a trigger, this will start an automation. So when there is a new calendar event, you can connect that to a different application. For example, when new calendar event, add event to Google Calendar. Google Calendar would be the action, and we'll show you that later. Other triggers, so you can start an automation when there's a new branch created, if there's a new course created, a new course enrollment. This is quite popular because you might want to send them a MailChimp campaign. So once they've enrolled into your course, you want to send them a MailChimp campaign. This will start that automation. If there's a new group created, a new user created, or a new user in a branch. So if someone's added to a branch, you might want to set up an automation after that. What's also very popular is this one, the new user created. So when there's a new user in Pluto LMS, send them a MailChimp campaign, or add them to HubSpot CRM, or add them to Salesforce. There's so many things that you can do. Then Zapier actions. So after you set up your Zapier trigger, the next step is to add an action to your Zap. So the Zapier definition is an action is an event your Zap performs when your trigger event occurs. So some of the actions, for example, let's say, and the example we'll show you in later is a Google Sheet example. So let's say there's something added to Google Sheet. An action would be create the new user. So as soon as you add a row to Google Sheet, create new user, for example. There's also, you can add users to groups. So you can assign system roles via Zapier. You can create calendar events via Zapier. Create course categories. You can also add users to branches. This is quite nice. For example, if you are using a third-party tool such as MailChimp and you're creating a list, perhaps your marketing team is a list within MailChimp. If someone's added to that list in MailChimp, you can automatically add that user to the same branch inside of Pluto. That's quite a popular use case. You can create groups. You can also create site branches. And the list continues. You can delete users via Zapier. Just be wary of deleting users when it comes to automation. Just monitor that carefully, but you can delete users. Enroll users into course. So also very popular, if you've got something occurs in Salesforce, you want to enroll that user into a course. You can also send them a message. So if you're using Slack, for example, let's say you send a Slack message, you also want the user to get that message inside of the LMS. That's a use case. You can suspend users using Zapier. You can unenroll users from course also, and update existing users. So updating a user is different to creating one. This is used when the user already exists and you just want to update their details. Let's say you're using a CRM and you update your CRM, you want that user to be updated in Pluto LMS. That can happen. Then finally, there's also Zapier search. So effectively, if you want to update a different record in an app, every time your Zap runs, you'll need to search step to find that record first. Search steps are a way to find existing data in your apps that later actions in your Zaps can reference and use. So effectively, this is the definition from the Zapier website. So effectively, it's just a step in your automation that allows you to search tools. So some of these search Zaps that we do have, you can search for the activity completion status of a user. So you can use Zapier to pull the activity completion status. You can search for a branch on your LMS. You can search for a course. You can search for the course completion status of a user, and you can also search for a user. So this becomes useful if you just running a search using Salesforce or HubSpot, for example, and you want to check if that user exists in your LMS. You can do it this way by using the search tool. Very importantly, just some key rules with Zapier, some common issues that may occur, and we'll show you a live example, but you cannot create the same user twice. So, if you're adding a user to Pluto LMS, just bear in mind you can't create a duplicate account. So you'll get this error that Zapier sends out to you. It'll give you a z.json error. That typically happens when you're running a test. So just be wary of that. You can't create the same user twice. Also, and this is all in our support docs too, but the username, it must be lowercase. There can't be any, funny symbols as explained over here. The username needs to be simplistic. Good practice is to have the username equal the email, just as good practice. First name, it must be text. Last name is text. Caps are obviously allowed. And then the email should be in the form of, name@example.com. It's not going to accept fake, so incorrect. It can accept fake emails, but not in the incorrect format. So you can't have name.example as an email address. That just, it's not in the correct format for an email. And then importantly is to use dynamic fields and not raw text, and we'll show you why in a bit. So when you're connecting all of the apps, it's always important to use the input as something dynamic rather than typing in an email address. Otherwise, the next time your Zap runs, it's going to reference something static instead of dynamic. Great. So we're going to give you a little live example, and we'll talk through that. So the trigger is going to be if there's a new spreadsheet row in Google Sheet, what we want to do is action, or in other words, create a new user. So just jumping into Zapier over here, they've got a really nice workflow tool. So our guides will show you exactly how to get here in terms of how to set up your account, etc. Zapier is a third-party service, so they have a ton of documentation on how to use their tool. Definitely encourage looking through that, and there are hundreds of millions of possible combinations. If you think of 3,000 third-party apps, each having actions, triggers, etc., there's so many different combinations that you can set up. So in this example, we're just going to add a new user to Pluto LMS via a spreadsheet. So the first step, we've completed this already, but the first step, what you would do is connect Google Sheets. You would select Google Sheets as your app, and then you would select the trigger event as new spreadsheet row. There are others that you can set up. In this example, we're just going to select new spreadsheet row. You would click continue. Then what you would do is you would connect to your Google Sheets account. So obviously, Zapier needs to know where to find that Google Sheet, and then you would connect to that Google Sheet account, and it will show you how to do that. Then the setup trigger. So what it's going to do is ask you to select a spreadsheet. So we're going to select Zapier webinar sample. So I'm just going to open that for you. This is what it looks like. So we've got 4 columns: username, first name, last name, and email. And I just want to show you what I've done is capitalize Joe and left the rest of the letters in small. Now, if you remember, what I showed you was that one of the rules is that we have to have lowercase for your username and for your email. So in this example, what I've done is intentionally made this uppercase. Because in reality, you've got 3,000 third-party applications. Some of them are not going to all be in small letters. So I'll show you how to work around that within Zapier. So you're going to choose which worksheet it is, and then from there, you're going to test the trigger. So you click on test trigger, and then it's going to give you the data that it pulls from Google Sheet. So as you can see here, column A is Joe's soap, and you can see the caps over there. Column B is Joe, column C is soap, column D is Joe again. So what we've done is we've just simply let the username equal the email address. And again, you can add different workflows. You can add, if you click on the plus icon, you'll be able to add many actions. It's completely up to you. So good practice, particularly when you're working with user data, is to first get it into the correct format. So Zapier has a nice tool. It's called the Zapier formatter. So what this will enable you to do is you'll first select it. So when you choose app and event, you're going to select formatter by Zapier. And the action event, in this case, we're going to choose text. I mean, you can format numbers, and there's a whole range of different options here. But we are formatting text in this example. So we're going to select text. The setup action, what we want to do, it's going to say transform. So based on the rules that we've discussed, we need that email address in lowercase, and we need that username in lowercase. So we're going to select lowercase. There are different transformations that you can do, but lowercase is going to do the trick for us here. And then the input value. So what I was talking about when it came to dynamic fields versus, raw text or static text is don't enter Joe soap at whatever email address it may be. You always have to refer to Google Sheets. So don't type in the email, because the next time the Zap runs, it's going to reference that static text. So don't type it in. Always when you click, select it from the drop-down list as you see here. So you're going to click, you can say show all options to get all of the information that Google Sheets is giving you. So you click on username, and then you're going to see that input over there. Then you're going to click on continue. And again, now we've put the username in lowercase. We're going to put the email in lowercase too. So you'll do exactly the same thing as we just did. Formatter, text, setup action, input the email again, then you're going to test the action. So what's quite nice is once you click on run the test, you'll see the output now is Joe's soap in small letters, which is exactly what we need when inputting this into Pluto. So it's all going to be in small letters for you. Now that we've got the information, we're going to click the plus sign, and then we're going to select Pluto LMS. The action is going to be create user. So there are a ton of different actions. You can add this user to a group, you can send them a message, etc. But what we're going to do here is create a new user, continue. You'll connect your Pluto LMS account. So our support docs will show you exactly how to do that. You'll connect your account and then set up action. So what's important here, when you select the username, you're not going to select the username from Google Sheets directly. You're actually going to select the formatted username. That's why you see it shows that symbol there and not Google Sheets, because you want the lowercase letters over there. And then for first name, that's fine. It's in the correct format. We can select that from Google Sheets. Last name, again, we're going to select from Google Sheets. That's great. We're using Google Sheets as an example here, but this could be from HubSpot. This could be from 3,000 plus different apps. So when I say Google Sheets, it could be Salesforce, it could be Google, it could be anything that exists on Zapier. And then email. You're going to input that over there. So these are the 4 minimum requirements in order to create a new user. There are some other options. You can input their city, you can input their country. There are options here for you. And then when you test the action, you click on test action, it'll show you, great, the user has now been created. So when you go to your LMS and you look at your user list, you'll see Joe Soap is actually created. Something I wanted to show you in terms of the most common error that does occur is if the user exists in the LMS, you can't create the same user twice. So I'm going to click on retest action. So I'm going to retest that whole process, and then what you'll see, as I explained earlier, was this error. So just bear that in mind, you can't create the same user twice. Within Zapier, you can create logic, you can create different workflows as well, but it's going to prevent you from creating the same user twice. There's many reasons for that, but when you do get this error, just check your LMS system, make sure that user is deleted, and then from there, add them again just to make sure. So that's Zapier in a nutshell. We're probably going to have another webinar explaining this in more detail because there are so many things you can do here. But for the purposes of time and this webinar, just showing you that as a basic example. If you have more questions, please reach out to support@plutolms.com. And we'll be more than happy to help. So that was the live example, which comes to the end of the webinar. So now we're going to go into a Q&A session. So if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Okay, we've got a question here. How do I connect Stripe to Zapier? The best way to do that, because Stripe and Zapier are third-party services. So the question is, how do you connect Stripe to Zapier? That's outside of Pluto LMS's control, because they're both third parties. So if you Google, Stripe Zapier, you'll see Stripe integrations. And, like you would have seen Pluto LMS earlier, you'll also have a Stripe integration over here. And there's a really useful button on Zapier called Help. So if you have any issues connecting any third-party app, you can click on Help. You can also contact Zapier support. So it says here, for example, how to get started with Stripe, common problems with Stripe, how to use Stripe payment links with Zapier. So, if you click on how to use Stripe payment links with Zapier, it gives you pretty good documentation on how to get set up with that. Question is, what does the Zapier free plan offer? Again, best to speak to the Zapier sales team. They are a third-party service, but when you click on pricing, it does explain exactly what you are getting in the free plan. Some key differentiators that we've noticed is the ability to set up multi-step zaps becomes quite important if you are going to use Zapier quite extensively. The ability to connect multi-steps. In other words, what you're seeing here, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 is a multi-step zap. So the free plan will only allow you one trigger, one action, and then that's where it cuts off. So that's the fundamental difference for Zapier on free versus the paid plans. But for the price they're offering, if you think of what you would pay a developer per hour, now you're getting 3,000 plus applications for starting at around $20 a month. It's definitely worth it. We personally use Zapier. We don't get any commission on any sales here, but really a good service that we would recommend. So another question is, does Pluto LMS take a cut of the payment fee with regards to payment integrations? So specifically, referring to our third-party payment gateways. So no, Pluto LMS does not take a cut. So if you are using PayPal, they will have their own fees. If you are using Stripe, they will have their own fees. But when you sell the course, you keep 100% of the fee. Zapier does, Pluto does not actually take a cut of that. There are transaction fees on those gateways though, but we do not take a cut. How do I set up a Zap from scratch? This is with regards to Zapier. So great question. In the example that I showed you, obviously I had these set up already for the purposes of time. But just to show you how it's set up from scratch, what you would do is go into Zapier. So in other words, you would create an account with Zapier, depending on the plan you're on, etc. You can discuss that with their sales team. But effectively, once you're in the platform, there are various ways to get to the same place. But the most simple way is just to say, create a Zap. So you'll click on create a Zap and the page will load. Another thing I wanted to show you is just our help documentation. So when I do go to our help documentation and I scroll down, where I want to go to is integrations, and then if I click on Zapier, we've got a ton of guides over here. The guide we're interested in is Zapier setup. So this will show you exactly what to do in terms of generating your token, getting that set up for Zapier, pulling that information, and it will show you exactly what to do step by step, but I'll show you live. So once we've clicked on create Zap, you're going to give it a name. So as I said, new user to Pluto LMS. You can decide what you want to call that. Enter, and the app event. So this is the trigger as we discussed. So I'm going to search Google Sheets. Great. Now it starts. So Google Sheets is selected. My trigger event, I want to be a new spreadsheet row. Great. Continue. Now, there are a couple of steps here, but you'll connect your account as well. I've got some personal information, so we can't connect it live here. Then you would say continue. And then, as I showed you previously, that would then connect your account. You're going to set up that trigger, spreadsheet, worksheet, etc. You're going to test that just to make sure data pulls in. Obviously, you're going to need some Google Sheet that is populated. So that's the first step as well. So going back to that, so we've connected that now. You can then, as I mentioned earlier, there's so many things you can do. You can delay the Zap, format the Zap. The tool we used earlier was format. So what we did was I clicked on format and then I chose text as mentioned earlier. Continue, transform, I'm going to type in lowercase because that's what I wanted to do, continue, and then the input, you're going to grab that from Google Sheets. Now, because I haven't run the test, they won't show the data here, but going back to my complete Zap, for the formatter, when you say setup, that input would be, the username, for example. We just haven't got the Google Sheets set up here because there's some confidential information. So you would select Google Sheets, and then for your action, you're going to do the formatter twice, one for the username, one for the email, and then you're going to search for Pluto LMS. And then, as I mentioned, there's a whole range of actions that you can implement. We're going to say create new user, continue. It's going to ask you to select a Pluto LMS account. Again, there's some confidential information here, so I can't show you this live. And then it would take you to this point here. So you would have selected the account. That's the error that I was showing you earlier and how to fix that. So you're going to select your account, continue, and then you're going to link in those dynamic fields as we discussed earlier, and continue. And there we go. That's how the user is created, and that's how you can do it from scratch. Really important. We've got our help center, which will show you quite a whole range of step-by-step guides. On Zapier as well, you can Google Zapier support, and they've also got their own support documentation. Really useful, shows you how to get started. They've got videos, how to create zaps, manage zaps, troubleshooting, etc. So there's a whole range of documentation that can assist you. But as always, if you need help, please do reach out. Great. And also, there are some third-party tools out there. We often get requests, can we integrate with Sage, or can we integrate with X or Y, or, there are a ton of third parties out there. We don't do custom integrations. That's why we've actually taken the time to develop our application on Zapier, just to give our clients ease of access to, the likes of Twilio, and there are so many integration opportunities out there. So if you have a third party that you want integrated with Pluto LMS, but there's no budget for a developer, I would definitely get on that third party's case, get them to get onto Zapier, because that way, there's going to create a whole range of integration opportunities. If that third party is not on Zapier, we definitely would encourage, promoting them to get onto Zapier. It's just it's a really seamless way to connect. So if get them on the ball, we'd definitely recommend that. So we got another question. Can you download and store recordings from video conferencing tools like Zoom? So the answer is yes. So Zoom, for example, has their own recording system. And if you want your students to access, for example, Zoom recordings via Pluto LMS, we do have a tool for that called utilise. So we're gonna look at utilise in another webinar. But yes, the students can access recordings, but it's very much dependent on that third party. So Zoom does offer it, for example. It's very much dependent on that third party tool. Great. No more questions. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate your time. I hope it was fruitful. We're going to be having another webinar next week, Wednesday. So definitely register for that via our website. Thanks so much for joining us. As I mentioned, in 2 weeks' time, we will be on part 2, where we'll look at other integrations on Pluto LMS. But enjoy the rest of your day and have a great week further.